Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever thought about whether the Dursleys were truly evil, or if the movies simply made them look that way? What if the truth about them was much more complicated, and they weren't the heartless monsters we've been led to believe? In today's video, you will find out what the films didn't show us about the Dursleys and why their story might deserve a second look. Throughout the Harry Potter series, few characters were as despised as the Dursleys. The ordinary Muggle family that raised Harry was portrayed as cruel, petty, and even abusive. Thanks to the movies, they stood alongside villains like Dolores Umbridge and Draco Malfoy, despite committing far fewer actual crimes. I won't say they were perfect, but maybe they weren't as bad as we thought. It's time to set the record straight and uncover their real story, the one that was mostly left out of the films. So grab your favourite Muggle tea and let's dive in. The Dursleys before Harry Potter. Petunia Dursley was the older sister of Lily Potter, Harry's mother. As children, they were close, but everything changed when Lily was revealed to be a witch and accepted into Hogwarts. Petunia dreamed of joining her sister in the magical world, even writing to Dumbledore begging for a chance to study magic. But she was a Muggle and her wish was impossible. Over time, jealousy turned into resentment. She distanced herself from magic, left her childhood home, and married a man who shared her views. Vernon Dursley was an average Muggle, practical, ambitious, and deeply concerned with order and normalcy. He didn't just dislike magic, he feared and distrusted it. But he and Petunia still had to maintain some contact with Harry's parents. After all, they were family. At one fateful dinner, James Potter mocked Vernon for his mundane lifestyle, embarrassing him deeply. From that moment on, Vernon held a grudge, and unfortunately, he directed much of that resentment at Harry, who reminded him too much of his father. Their son, Dudley Dursley, grew up spoiled and entitled. Given everything he wanted and never disciplined, he became a bully. But as we'll see later, even Dudley wasn't beyond redemption. Why the Dursleys disliked Harry? Their mistreatment of Harry wasn't random. It had reasons, even if they weren't good ones. Petunia resented Harry because he represented everything she had once wished for, but could never have. He was a wizard, just like her sister. He was kind, intelligent, and strong, qualities that made her own son look worse in comparison. And perhaps, deep down, she feared that his presence would bring danger to their home. Vernon disliked Harry because he was the spitting image of James Potter, the man who had humiliated him years ago. That bitterness never faded, and as for Dudley, he bullied Harry simply because he had never been taught otherwise. He was a child raised without boundaries, and hurting others made him feel powerful. Were the Dursleys truly evil? Despite everything, I wouldn't say they were outright villains. Here's why. The Dursleys tried to keep Harry away from the dangers of the magical world. When they desperately blocked his Hogwarts letters, maybe they weren't just being cruel. Maybe they genuinely thought they were protecting him from a world filled with dark wizards, Voldemort, and deadly spells. Over time, they showed moments of remorse. Petunia stopped Vernon from throwing Harry out after the Dementor attack. And in their final goodbye, she hesitated, as if she wanted to say something meaningful, but couldn't find the words. Even Dudley changed. He thanked Harry for saving him from the Dementors and later, as an adult, kept in touch with him and Ginny. The Dursleys' story is more complicated than the films let on. Their actions, while often cruel, were not entirely without reason. But what if their treatment of Harry was more about fear than hatred? What if they were simply trying to survive in a world they didn't understand? Imagine waking up one day to find that everything you believed about the world was wrong. That people could fly, control objects with a flick of their wrist, and defeat death itself. For the Dursleys, magic wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. Petunia, who once longed to be part of that world, had convinced herself that she was better off without it. She saw magic as unpredictable, dangerous, and responsible for the death of her only sister. Losing Lily was a wound that never fully healed, and now she was forced to raise the child of the world she had spent her life trying to escape. Vernon, on the other hand, had no past connection to magic, only a deep resentment toward those who wielded it. He liked order, predictability, and hard work. The idea that someone could be born with power he could never achieve was unsettling. Worse, James Potter had treated him like a joke. Harry, a living reminder of James, was impossible to accept. And then there was Dudley. He was a product of his parents' fears and desires. They spoiled him because they wanted him to be normal, successful, powerful in his own way. In their minds, Harry was the opposite, someone weak, strange, and a threat to their carefully built reality. But here's the thing, even in their worst moments, the Dursleys were not beyond redemption. Petunia had opportunities to rid herself of Harry, but she never did. She had seen firsthand what happened to Lily and knew that leaving Harry unprotected would likely mean his death. Deep down, despite her resentment, she still saw him as family. Vernon, for all his anger, wasn't a man who enjoyed cruelty. He preferred to ignore problems rather than confront them. He never beat Harry, never truly harmed him beyond emotional neglect. His mistreatment of Harry stemmed more from fear than malice. And Dudley, perhaps the most surprising of them all, was capable of change. There's a moment in The Deathly Hallows that didn't make it into the films. As the Dursleys leave their home for the last time, Dudley stops and does something completely unexpected. He asks where Harry is. When Petunia tells him that Harry isn't coming with them, Dudley looks genuinely upset. He turns to Harry and says, "I don't think you're a waste of space." For someone who spent most of his life bullying Harry, this is a major moment. It's proof that Dudley has been thinking about everything that's happened, that he understands, at least in part, the way he's treated Harry. He doesn't have the words to say, "I'm sorry," but this is the closest he can get. Even Petunia has a moment of hesitation before leaving. She turns to Harry as if she wants to say something. In the books, J.K. Rowling later revealed that Petunia was about to tell Harry that she did, in her own way, love him, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. The years of bitterness, the walls she had built around herself, were too strong to break. Imagine an alternate timeline where the Dursleys made different choices, where Petunia embraced her nephew instead of resenting him, where Vernon accepted that magic wasn't an attack on his beliefs, but just another part of the world, where Dudley grew up with a friend instead of a rival. Maybe things would have been different. Maybe they could have been a family. But life isn't that simple. People don't always make the right choices. Sometimes fear wins over love. Still, the fact that Dudley, at least, was able to change means something. It means that the way the Dursleys treated Harry wasn't just about cruelty, it was about pain, misunderstanding and regret. It means that they weren't villains, just deeply flawed people trying to navigate a world they didn't understand. And maybe, just maybe, that makes them more human than we ever realized.